Welcome to this edition of the Mazza's Musings podcast. Today, Eileen and I are going to be talking about the Big E, which is basically the New England Fall Fair. It encompasses all 6 of the New England states. And Eileen and Meghan absolutely love this fair. Me, I'm not so much a fan. And I thought, maybe I'd be a little more into it if it was a little bit more like Disney. So this episode is all about how we would Disney-fy the Big E. We also talked with Meghan afterwards. She was in bed when we recorded this episode, and we got a few of her thoughts on that, so I'll throw those in at the end as well. I want to thank everybody who has been listening to the podcast, everybody who has left a rating or a review, or has shared our social media. Our social media, of course, is the Mazza's Musings podcast Facebook page. We also have Mazza's Musings Pod on Instagram and Threads. Those who are interested in finding out more about the podcast, of course, can go to mazzasmusings.wordpress.com. And if you are truly enjoying this podcast, in addition to sharing it, you can buy us a blue milk. Now, our Star Wars fans out there know that blue milk is delicious and nutritious and will help us grow. So if you go to our Facebook page or to our website, you will find links to how you can support us monetarily with a small obligation-free contribution that will help us grow the podcast and reach more people. Also, thank you to everybody who reached out about our previous episode about James Earl Jones. Some people shared a lot of their memories from his time acting and voice acting, and a lot of them are similar things to what we shared, and I think that it really speaks to the legacy that he left behind. So thank you to everybody who has participated in that. Also, if you have not yet signed up for our newsletter, it's a great way to find out what's happening with this podcast and others as well. We shout out podcasts that we think are doing fun or interesting things. We'll also let you know about any sweepstakes, contests, or other opportunities. There was one time where we mentioned an opportunity that artists could have to work with a professional sports team. Just little things that we find interesting that we think you'll find interesting as well. Maybe we talk about them on the podcast, but honestly, a lot of times we don't. Anyway, much like the Big E season, my time to record this is short, so we're going to get right to the episode. And here we go.
Donald, wake up! It's showtime! Don't forget the orchestra!
Ah, there you are, and just in time.
Mom says there's even more magical stuff now.
For those of you standing, please hold on to the handrails throughout our journey and stay clear of the doors.
Hang on to them hats and glasses, cause this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
And here we go!
Here we are, Eileen and Chris, and we are talking some Big E and really how we could make the Big E a much more magical place.
I don't know. It's still pretty fun.
Okay.
But it doesn't have the same magic that you're referring to.
So for those of you who aren't familiar, I think most of our listeners are in the New England region, but we do have a few from outside of the area. The Big E is basically like a state fair, except because the New England states are so small, they basically combine them all into the 6 New England states at one fair that happens to be basically in our backyard here in Western Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's only about 20 minutes away, so we could go as much as we wanted, if we wanted to.
So usually we go once.
And that's pulling Chris's, or that's twisting Chris's arm.
Yeah, I being a city boy, I just don't connect with it at all. A lot of it is, like state fair stuff. A lot of it is agriculturally themed. And then the other half of it is like eat as much bad food as you want. And that's not really my thing either. So I don't know. And the state buildings, mostly, it's just like I've been to all these states. So for those who aren't familiar, there's the Avenue of States, where there are buildings that are dedicated to each of the New England states. And then you go in there and they've got stuff that they offer, and, whether it's food that's specific to
businesses from that state.
Yeah.
There's decorations that are related to that state. And then, of course, like tables of flyers and things that they give away related to that state.
Spoiler alert, there's a lot of maple items and a lot of dairy products, basically.
Yeah, I mean, can't argue with that.
So, anyway.
And bacon.
And bacon, yes. Bacon's a big one. So, one of the things that we just had our annual trip to the Big E. I'm not a huge fan. Eileen and Meghan, however, are. So I give them one trip a season. And
it certainly helps that he usually gets a ticket from work. So then he doesn't even have to pay entrance for himself. And
we have some friends who have parking nearby who allow us to park, where we can be semi-close to the Big E, because on top of everything else is not a great parking situation there. And basically anybody who lives within a mile radius turns their front yard into a parking lot, charging $20 a car. So yeah, we get the one time a year when we go, and we did that this what was it?
This past
Saturday?
Weekend. Yes, it was Saturday. It was a busy day on Saturday. We typically don't go on a Saturday.
It was a very busy, I believe it was a record-setting crowd, and that was the one thing that Disney and the Big E seem to have in common is the crowds. Though even the crowds are a little different.
I mean, I think at the Big E there's limited traffic flow. Like Disney is much, I don't want to say more open, but I don't know, there's more routes that you can take at Disney.
You don't feel quite as trapped by the crowd a lot of the time. Yeah, there's also a little bit different clientele, I think, too. I see at Disney World, I see a lot less profanity on shirts and things like that.
Well, aren't you not allowed to wear that at Disney?
Well, I guess that's one more reason why Disney is better, too. But anyway, originally the concept that I had for this podcast is, well, we should compare, looking at the fact that crowds are one thing that Disney and the Big E have in common, maybe we should compare Disney to the Big E. And then I was thinking about it, and that really doesn't seem very fun. I would say the one thing that I will give the Big E is, if you are into, like, all of the fried food and stuff like that, the Big E's got you covered in terms of that kind of stuff and the variety that you can find. The Big E, one of the things that they really specialize in is unique foods and crazy things. Like there was a pickle lemonade, or the crazy burger, which was a bacon cheeseburger with onion rings stuffed between two donuts. So like there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And the other thing that they have on over Disney is the beer selection. It's
absolutely.
We're blessed in the New England region to have a lot of great breweries, and one of them is actually right basically across the street from the Big E, and one of their signature drinks is the West Side Big Slide, which is a nod to the giant yellow slide, which is kind of one of the trademarks of the Big E.
Also, the cheapest thing you can do at the Big E, or the best use of money at the Big E.
The slide.
The slide.
Not the beer.
No, the beer's not the cheapest, but it's also a good use of your time.
So I decided to pivot a little bit. Now, the premise of this exercise in this episode is we're basically imagining that Disney decided that they were taking over the Big E. And it's still going to be like the 2 weeks of, in the fall, in the early fall. I guess it's still technically not fall yet, is it?
It'll be fall by the time the Big E ends.
So, but it's going to be Disney-fied. So...
Is that a real word?
I just made it up. Well, I didn't just make it up. I made it up earlier today.
In 5th grade, we're only allowed to use words that are in the dictionary.
Okay, 5th grade teacher. Well, we are not in your classroom.
Otherwise they talk nonsense.
We are in my fantasy world where Disney is taking over the Big E. So, the whole concept here is basically we're taking elements of the Big E. We're not changing things dramatically. Like the things that are at the Big E will kind of stay, but there may be things that we change or theming that we think would work, like Disney theming that would work with different areas of this fair. It's a pretty expansive fair. I haven't been to many other state fairs.
The only other one I have any knowledge of is the Minnesota State Fair, which apparently is the greatest thing in the entire world. I've never been there, but one of my best friends.
So says the one person you know from Minnesota.
Yeah, so I guess we're comparable. I don't know if we're comparable to that, but the way she describes the state fair in Minnesota reminds me a lot of the Big E.
So basically, we're looking at these parts of the Big E that we could possibly change to make them more like Disney properties. And this is total fantasy where money is no object here, and even really functionality is it doesn't necessarily have to work. It's just a fun exercise to kind of like, how could you bring some magic to this mass of humanity that is looking at one of the 10 hot tub vendors that's there while eating a corn dog and a 1 pound mozzarella stick?
That is so good. I didn't get that this year. We got it once, I think, and it's so good. Chris doesn't like mozzarella sticks. I can't eat a whole pound of cheese myself, so it's not something we get very often.
So, kicking this off right off the bat is we mentioned the Avenue of States with those state buildings, and they're very classic kind of brick and mortar kind of buildings, very much in that kind of colonial style.
Absolutely.
So if I'm Disney-fying the Big E, the first thing I'm starting with is I'm changing those to princess castles.
But they're still going to have the state stuff on the inside.
Well, they can. I mean, we can talk about that, but but yeah, I mean, sure.
Because we still have to have the Big E where we look at New England.
I suppose if we're keeping with the New England theme to the Big E, I think with a lot of things that Disney kind of takes over, they do kind of like fudge things a little bit. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but there is one area of the Big E that I think that they would kind of keep as is, regardless, but we'll get into that in a minute. So we're talking about Princess Castle, so you're looking at like the castle from like Sleeping Beauty's castle, Cinderella's castle, Belle and the Beast's castle. Let's see. So we need 3 more.
You had mentioned like Rapunzel.
Yes, the castle from the kingdom. I think they call it Corona, is the kingdom's name.
I'm not an expert on Rapunzel.
Neither am I. Arendelle.
Oh yeah.
So we could do Arendelle, or if we're talking about like a frozen wasteland, we could have Elsa's ice castle and put it in Maine.
Okay, that could go in Maine. And and Prince Eric's castle.
Prince Eric's castle. See, the last one that I came up with, I was trying to. That's a good one because it is a different kind of architecture. I was trying to think of something with a little bit different architecture, and I kept thinking about the castle from Brave, Merida's family's castle.
Okay. I mean,
but
I say Prince Eric's castle.
I think that's a little more recognizable.
And I mentioned earlier that I would put that in place of the Rhode Island, or like in the Rhode Island building. One thing in the Rhode Island building is a lot of seafood. Prince Eric's castle is right on the ocean. So that makes that seafood very accessible.
Fair enough.
If we're going with Elsa's ice castle for Maine, I think that Eric's seaside castle works for Rhode Island.
I'm not really sure how the other ones would fit in terms of, in terms of the states. I just being from Massachusetts, I'd want Cinderella's castle for my own, just because I think it's it's the best. But what's the blandest castle? Because I feel like that would be the one that Connecticut should get.
Yeah, no, that's what I was trying to think too. What would be for Connecticut? I don't know. I guess I think like the Beast's castle could be either Vermont or New Hampshire, kind of like very in a remote wooded area. Fits for both of those.
So I would say, I might say Vermont for that, and like the. Boy, I just had a brain fart. The Rapunzel's castle for New Hampshire, because there's a coast, and that's like an island kingdom. So, just throwing one of the most famous things about New Hampshire outside of the White Mountains is like
their coastline.
Is Hampton Beach and that kind of thing. So,
so would Sleeping Beauty be Connecticut?
I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, I know that it's like the center of Disneyland, but I also think that when I think of like the movies and the castles, like that's the one where the castle probably is like the least involved in it. So Connecticut can have that. Yeah,
it's hard to find a really a castle that really captures the essence of what was once the insurance capital of America. So,
I think we also just, because Connecticut is somewhere that's just 10 minutes away, it's not anything that's not unique to us. So it's kind of one of those things that it's like, okay, we're just going to go to Connecticut. It doesn't need anything fancy. Whereas Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, even Rhode Island, those are much more like
more of a
drives. Trip. That's a trip that we're taking.
Yeah.
Versus going to Target.
Right. Yeah, so the closest Target to our house is just over the line from where we live in Connecticut. So a trip to Connecticut to us is not all that special, though. I'm not sure a trip to Connecticut for anybody is all that special.
Depends where you go. They do have a coast.
Yes, they do.
Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, so one of the other things about the Big E that I find hilarious is it's like the as seen on TV capital, like physical capital of the world. Like the Better Living Center is a building on the fairgrounds that is basically just filled with all these different contraptions and like these weird things, like the things that you'd see on TV, like order now at 2:00 in the morning.
It does have some cool stuff in there and some like smaller shops too. But I would say yes, in general, there's a lot of random stuff in there.
Yeah, it's like they've got like these gizmos that it's just like get 300 channels for 99 cents a month and stuff like that. It's like there's no possible way that this is legal, but anyway, it honestly so for that I just had this it would be very easy to like theme that like Goofy's gadgets, and you could actually like even take a corner of it. It was one thing I think Disney's gotten pretty good at is it's pretty self-aware and it's not afraid to kind of like poke fun of itself
if it needs to.
So, like, you could have a stage show where it's like Goofy just like, being the person who's trying to sell you these like ridiculous items. Originally, the thing that always comes to mind when I walk through there is actually that the opening scene from Aladdin when the guy first shows you the lamp.
Yeah.
Welcome to Agrabah, city of mystery, of enchantment. The finest merchandise this time I've ever shown, on sale today. Come on down.
He's trying to sell you all these things. He's just like, it's a combination this and coffee maker also makes julienne fries. And it's just like, and then he's trying to sell you Tupperware.
Look at this. Yes, combination hookah and coffee maker also makes julienne fries. Will not break. Will not. It broke. Oh, look at this. I have never seen one of these intact before. This is the famous Dead Sea Tupperware. Listen. Still good.
And so originally I was thinking like something like that, but that kind of, in today's era, that kind of caricature probably wouldn't fly socially. So Goofy, I feel like, is a good kind of like, he could do that and pull that off with like something kind of silly, and maybe constantly either breaking or using the thing wrong and there being some kind of catastrophe. And it could be something a little bit different at different times of the day.
Oh, yeah. And he could have some guests come out with him at different points in the day, too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So
I could see Clarabelle totally, like, getting involved in that situation, too. And just thinking about her, like...
They've got a real, on again, off again, will they, won't they kind of thing, don't they?
I mean, I can never quite tell.
Are they just really good friends?
I don't even know. Is it something that we've all just created in our mind? Moving on.
Anyway.
I'm just going to cut every conversation when it's time to be done. That's my job tonight.
So another big thing, as you'll see at most fairs and things like the pier and things like that, is the Midway. It's the area with the carnival. It's a carnival kind of atmosphere. It's got the carnival games. It's got the the carnival rides.
Yeah.
And it also is the spot with another one of the big marquee things for the Big E is the big giant Ferris wheel.
Yeah, you always get a picture like in front of the Midway with the Ferris wheel, and if you're really lucky, you get your husband to say to your daughter, "Let's make grumpy faces." And then you have this picture that you just say, "Okay," and delete it because they couldn't even make an effort.
Well, the thing is, she wasn't going to take the picture at all unless I said, let's make grumpy faces. So you at least got a picture. Otherwise, it was going to be like her back with her arms folded. So. I
mean, if I said no cream puff, she would have taken that picture.
That's true. And maybe we'll get to the cream puff. I'm not sure if we'll have time for that. But basically, so the Midway is that, the kind of carnival fun area with the big Ferris wheel, and the obvious thing that you could do there is like at Disney's California Adventure and put a big Mickey face on the wheel, and that seems kind of
that's obvious.
One of the thing, but these are it's a very big Ferris wheel. It's a huge Ferris wheel. So it's actually like the enclosed cars. So when I was actually looking at the cars, I was thinking, this was what was going through my mind as we're going through the fair, and I'm looking at this. I was just like, those are kind of like the Skyliner cars. And so then I was just like, if we were to do, if Disney were to do this, I could see them like, having like the Skyliner cars with the wraps, and having, it's just like, oh, we're getting in the Mickey and Minnie car for the ride.
And they might go a little different direction with the wraps, and they could even do like each we're getting in the hot tub wrap. We're getting in the, the cream puff wrap. We're getting in the state building wrap. Like, so I could see
that's
them
a good
doing
idea.
something like, for each different part, we're getting in the baby chick wrap. Like, so connecting it more to what's going on at the Big E versus just like Disney movies or Disney.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. That's
still adds that personal touch that they like, but it keeps it with the theme of that particular place.
So one of the places it's one of Megan's favorite places to go at the Big E is called the Farm-o-Rama. And it's basically, it's kind of a mismatch of different things. It's all farm and farm animal related. It's where the baby chicks are.
And you get to watch them hatch.
Right. There's an actual hatchery there. And there's this little area that's basically like showing, it's for little kids, but basically showing them where different food comes from. Like they dig for potatoes and onions. And
it's supposed to be like a little mini scavenger hunt where you go through and you find like one apple and you have to pick it off the tree and you have to dig and find one potato. But it kind of turns into kids just like pulling all the apples off the tree and digging up all the potatoes and finding all the pretend eggs under the stuffed chickens.
Yes. Yeah, so, you can actually pull an egg out of a stuffed chicken.
But in that same building, you can also milk the pretend cow.
That's right. You can milk the pretend cow. You can also watch the real bees that are working. There's also the real baby pigs.
Yes, they're cute.
And that's also where they keep the Clydesdales for. In the past, it's been the Budweiser Clydesdales that are there, and they're part of the parade that they have during the around 6 o'clock. I think they only do one now.
They do one. I think it's just one parade, but yeah, they do a daily parade in the evening, and the Clydesdales are in it, along with some floats and things like that.
So one thing that I thought in that building that you could make, and it would be a unique kind of Disney adjacent kind of thing, is instead of the Clydesdales, and based on what the horses are, there would probably be at least a Clydesdale there anyway, but horses
from the movies?
Yes.
Oh, that
exactly.
would be cool.
Yeah, so in each stall it would be a horse that
Merida has a Clydesdale, right? Or at least something similar.
Merida, and I don't think it's a Clydesdale, but it's Philippe. Belle's horse is another big workhorse.
Yeah, but you're right. There's several that have horses.
But the prince has a horse in Snow White
and Sleeping Beauty, right? Prince Philip has one in Sleeping Beauty.
Yep. Let's see. Maximus in Rapunzel, Tangled. There's. Well, a couple. There's a horse.
Oh, you looked them all up?
I've just got a little thing here. There's a horse.
Just go into Saratoga Springs lobby.
Oh yeah, you could go. Yeah, yes, because they do have pictures of a lot of the horses in the Saratoga Springs Resort Hotel lobby. That's a great call. So there's a horse in Cinderella, and then. Also, Gus and Jack, are they turned into horses?
No, they turn into the footmen, don't
They're
they?
the footmen?
I forget.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie. But at least there's at least one horse. There's also a horse in. There's also a horse in 101 Dalmatians. So even beyond the princesses, it's the captain from 101 Dalmatians when they help Pongo and Perdita find them up at the DeVille place. It's been so apparently there are a couple from and there's a horse in Mulan.
Yes.
So that on top of everything else would be a very different kind of horse, like or not an Arabian horse, some kind of Asian horse.
I'm sure it has a name other than Asian horse.
Yes, but I'm not familiar with
breeds of horses.
Anything equestrian is kind of beyond me. But yeah, so there are a few different, different breeds of horses and things like that. So you could kind of diversify it. Now, it would probably be hard to get all of these different kinds of horses to pull like a wagon like they do now so you'd probably have to work on how you'd incorporate them into the parade.
You might just have each horse with a rider on it or something versus all of them pulling the wagon.
Yeah.
But either way, you could see them all in that space too.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things is when they're not getting ready for the parade, in the Farm-o-Rama building, you can go see them. In the Farm-o-Rama building, like we had mentioned, the scavenger hunt, digging for potatoes, everything like that. Remember, it could be a few things, but when we were in line for Tiana's at Magic Kingdom, like in the queue, there was like the children's garden that had like a pretend... Like, it had pretend food and stuff like that. That just dawned on me. But could totally, call it Tiana's Garden or something like that, where then they're going up and getting the food, and instead of bringing it up to, the farm stand, they're bringing it up to Tiana or something like that. Yeah, no, that's a great one. Let's see. Anything else for there? I don't think so. That was a hard one to kind of, the horses actually kind of just came to me, but that's an entire that area is so kind of a hodgepodge. That's the area also where they have all the is that the area where they have the giant pumpkins and stuff like that too, or the decorated pumpkins? At least some, yes. I don't think we went over to those this year. No, I don't think we made it there. We were there a long time this year, but I feel like we didn't. We spent more time in certain areas. That's also the building where I end up inevitably getting the allergy-induced migraine. Is it that one, or is it the one where we go in and it has all the livestock in it? I guess it depends on which one we go in first, because either one of those is just going to set me off. Because I'm basically allergic to the planet Earth. Anyway. Moving on. So, they have this little train ride that goes around. And there was one year where we let Megan ride the train a couple times. It was one time, and we gave her the choice of we could ride the train again or do the slide again. Or no, did we do it twice? I think twice. We did it. We did the slide, we did the train, and then she wanted to do both again, and we told her she could pick one. And she picked the train. Yeah. So it's it's just a little train. Yeah, you've probably seen them at other events, and they're honestly they're things that you can rent out, but they end up charging an obscene amount of money to get on the train and go on a little ride around. And it doesn't really, it basically just takes you around the street. So right. It's not like you're on a train ride getting to go see cool things or anything like that, or going to an area that's normally not open or something like that. So what I would do with that is I'd probably make it more like the train at Disney World. Yeah. Or I think they've got a similar setup at Disneyland. But basically it would be a train that goes around kind of the perimeter of and has stops where you can, Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Just like they do at Disney World, have stops at different areas of the park or of the fair so that you can get on and off, and it would be themed like one of the trains, at Disneyland or Disney World, and it's a simple redesign. The harder part is designing the path around it. But that would be so much more beneficial, because on top of it, when you ride this train, you're going on the same road that everyone is walking down. So it doesn't have a designated path, and you're just sort of riding on this train, watching people walk by you. Right. One thing that I just thought of and this is just totally, they're doing away with this stuff, and it's probably going to go into storage or something anyway. This is getting back to the Midway. Mm-hmm. Is you could totally take a bunch of that Dinoland USA stuff and plop it in there. Give me Primeval Whirl at
Oh, yeah.
On the Midway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, that's exactly the type of rides that are on the
Right.
Midway.
Yeah.
Is that, like, Primeval World.
and so then on top of everything else, you've got all the people from the East Coast who go down to Disney World for vacation, and they're just like, oh, I remember this from that doesn't exist anymore, and so there's a little bit of nostalgia there. So sorry to jump backwards, but that was something that had occurred to me. So we talked about the horses, and we mentioned the parade.
Yeah.
Now the parade, one of the it's a Mard-E Gras parade, so I feel like there's already some built-in theming there, and then you could just like have Tiana and Prince Naveen leading that parade, and you could have
Or Louis the Alligator.
and Louis, and you can have the whole, yeah.
He'd fit well on a float.
Oh, Louis, give anything to be up there jamming with the big boys.
They actually have a new alligator float this year. That's why with the butter sculpture, it was saying Al-E Gator. It's the gator float
okay.
that they had
So
this
it's
year.
gotten-
So this is one of those things that I just don't understand about.
So where are we right now? Are we on the parade's going to be themed Mardi Gras Tiana?
Yeah, I'm gonna get back to that.
Okay.
I just wanted to explain. I just referenced a butter sculpture, and this is just one of the things that I don't understand about the Big E. I'll never understand why something like that needs to exist. So.
Yeah, but at some state fairs, I believe they have a butter queen. So at least we only have a butter sculpture.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there was also we ran into a strawberry queen and a honey queen.
There was something with lobster too.
I don't get
lobster
this.
queen.
Yeah, I don't get that stuff either. But anyway, so yeah, Tiana, Princess Tiana, Prince Naveen, Louis the Alligator can all be like the central focus of this parade. But then you could also have other Disney friends who are in like, Mardi Gras clothes and stuff like that, and you can still do the whole thing where like they throw beads off the float.
Yeah.
Megan ended up with like 16 things of beads that are gonna end up all over our house.
I mean, one already broke today at school. She brought it to school and it broke, but she says it wasn't a distraction.
I'm sure not. But yeah, so that would be one of those easy shifts. The area that I had mentioned that could kind of stay the same is the Storrowton Village area. Mm-hmm. It would really kind of be like that.
It's very much like, for those who don't know, it's very much like colonial style already. So
Right, so it would be very much like that. That Liberty Square kind of feel to that. So that's something that I think that I could see them keeping as is. Let's see. I'm trying to think. One of the things that we mentioned the slide. We've mentioned the slide a couple of times, and that was one that I think we've had a hard time figuring out a retheme for. The only thing that I could think of was like, instead you'd be doing away with the yellow, and it's white, and basically it becomes like a Olaf sledding thing.
He's crazy.
yeah, and I think some of the reason we've had a hard time with that is because it is iconic. So some of the things are much easier to be like, oh, we could plop this here, we could change it to this, and I say iconic, but everyone in Western Mass knows what the big yellow slide is. Whether you've gone, like, that's also something that stays up year round, so you see it.
It's visible
all the time.
Yeah.
It's very visible.
Yeah, so I think that's the only thing that I could come up with. If anybody else has any ideas, you can certainly shoot me an email or send me a message on social media, and we'd be happy to talk about that and read that on a future podcast.
I think It's only fair before we sign off that we mentioned the cream puffs a couple of times.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, I thought you were just... I'm sorry. The way you gave your email or whatever, it sounded like you were done.
No, I was just saying, if anybody has any thoughts on that, because we don't have any big ones.
All right, I took that as you were wrapping it up.
No.
So never mind. Go ahead.
No, I think jumping back to, and this is another thing that I had forgotten to mention before about the Midway, and I think why I keep forgetting about it is because we don't spend a lot of time on the Midway. Like, we don't do a lot of the rides and things like that. One of the things about the Midway is, the Carnival games, and they're just like...
Sideshow Pete.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the thing is, they're basically scams. Like, they're rigged so you don't win, and I feel like this would be something that, that whatever the games are, they're all Pete themed, but the people working the booths are also kind of in character and kind of
so
like
they're
mocking.
cats?
No, not, but they're in character, like they're mocking you or laughing when you don't get like Pete would, they're.
And I don't know how rigged they are. Think about the number of people we saw in 85-degree weather carrying giant stuffed animals on their head that they really probably didn't want to win.
They probably spent $60 trying to win them, though.
I mean, that stuffed animal was worth more than $60. They're life size. And then you're stuck carrying it around all day.
So, I think that the one other thing I mentioned, that the food is the one thing that the food and the
more
beer,
variety, absolutely.
I think that Disney has the Big E beat in terms of variety of drinks overall, but just talking about so I don't think they'd really have to change much about that. But one thing that Disney has that they could really use is mobile ordering.
So you could get those tacos, empanada tacos.
So one of the local vendors who was at the Big E this year, it's a place called Macho Taco. They had empanada tacos, which is exactly what it sounds like. They cut open the empanada shell and used that as like the taco shell, and filled the taco with all the good stuff. It was like the perfect fair food, something that would be easy to carry around. Yeah, yes, it's a little messy, but easy to carry around. And
there's tacos, so there's some vegetable in there, so you're eating a.
Yes, because people who are going and eating fair food are really worried about.
I can tell myself if I've eaten a vegetable, I've eaten healthier than other things.
But the line for that was, I'm not even exaggerating, it was 100 people deep.
Yeah.
It went down I guess you'd call it a street, the alley,
the
whatever
avenue,
avenue, yeah. But just imagine, say you wanted to get your clam chowder in a bread bowl, and you could set the time when you were going to get it, and then when you're in the area, say boom, and then go get it. And
another perk of mobile ordering, thinking about the Disney app, you can check the menu and you can see what's there. I feel like sometimes at the Big E, we're like, what do we want? What's here? And we just wander and get something that we find. Whereas we could look and be like, I want this at this time, and see like where things are and what is actually there.
And just think how much more people would be able to accomplish if they didn't have to stand in a ridiculously long line for a baked potato. Now, this is a real thing. People stand in line for a baked potato at the Big E. Apparently, there's something about Maine potatoes that's better than other potatoes that are smothered in Cheese Whiz with bacon bits.
I believe they use fresh cheddar, don't they?
It looks like Cheese Whiz to me.
Okay.
Either way.
I mean, loaded baked potatoes are delicious. We should do that sometime.
Yeah, but that's just it. I can do that at home. Why would I pay to go somewhere to then stand in line to pay more money?
I don't get that either.
Yes. But I don't. But of course, if they took away that that aspect of it, people would probably just realize it's just a baked potato. People are just like, I waited an hour for this. I got something. It's like, it's a potato.
Anyway.
See, these you're getting a window into all the things that I'm just like, I don't get it about this place. But anyway, so there's a lot of food that kind of overlaps. You know, they're both places that people go and are just like, I gotta have a turkey leg. Turkey legs are fine. I don't think I'd eat one at either one of those places. But
I mean, I can't say I've ever ordered one myself at either of those places, but I've eaten a bite of the Disney one before. It was a long time ago. I don't remember what it tasted like.
Probably like a turkey leg.
Probably. But anyway.
So I think this is going to just about do it, unless we can think of any special theming for the millions of hot tub vendors that are there, which is one of Megan's favorite things to do, is to go into these hot
and
tub
look
places.
at the hot tubs.
Like, and you know, yeah. And I gotta say, I would love a hot tub, but I'm especially not going to buy one at a fair. I have to.
No, but we can look at the different kinds.
We can, and I have to wonder how many they actually sell. Those are some pretty big.
Yeah.
That's some real estate that they're taking up there.
Absolutely.
They spend a lot of money on that real estate just to be there. I have to wonder how many hot tubs they actually sell there. I mean, obviously enough that it's worth it to them.
Yeah, I think they probably must. You mentioned the drinks. Especially if you're sort of in, I mean, to be fair, I know a lot of like the shed companies, the hot tub companies, they do have like Big E deals where if you go in, so you go in and you plan on purchasing them. I don't think they get a lot of people who show up at the Big E and randomly decide to purchase a hot tub unless they've had too many drinks to count.
Imagine carrying that home. I mean, you talk about carrying one of the giant stuffed animals.
But I do know people who have gone to the Big E with the purpose of looking at the sheds. I'm guessing the hot tubs are similar to that, looking for those deals that they have. So.
All right. Well, is there anything else that has come to mind?
No, I just think the cream puffs are delicious, and I think that that's something that the Big E does very well. They've also marketed them well, and they've adapted them every year. This
year, they were. I've never. That's another thing that the cream puffs are good, but I've never understood like the real wow factor about them. I feel like there's more legend than anything.
No, and I think it's because you're only getting them once a year.
That's true.
So, like, I'm not going to eat a cream puff next month. Yes, I could probably get one from the store, but it doesn't taste the same. It's not freshly made. And they are freshly made because we watched them pushing them around to the stands. Right.
But I think if they were to do anything with it, like this year's, they had the cookies and cream puff, which was terrific. You know, so like I've raved about this one, and I've in previous years have been like, yeah, it's a cream puff. This was great. Like I made sure, you know,
to tell everyone about it.
I made sure to tell everybody about it, and I did not, you know, give any pushback when, you know, we were talking about getting one. But it would be easy enough with a cookies and cream puff to, you know, to turn it into a Mickey thing by putting a couple of Oreos, you know, like, you know, on the top or something like that.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was the only other thing that you'd want something done with it for the dessert piece, but I don't know what it would be. But if you do go to the Big E, get a cream puff.
More than, I think, like 3 people at this point have asked me if I got a Dole Whip at the Big E, because apparently they had Dole Whips at the Big E. Now I haven't had a Dole Whip. Whips at Disney. We're not Dole Whip people anyway, but it seems, you know, they're already shifting that way. They're already getting some Disney stuff, you know, there. I'm sure they're not the same for anybody who was ultra protective of their Dole Whips, and it would be offended by me saying that, you know, that you can just get one at the Big E. But so that is how we would Disney-fy the Big E. If you have any ideas on how to Disney-fy the Big E, that's harder to say than you would think. You can send me an email, mazasmusings@gmail.com, or find us on those social media outlets and let us know. Or on Spotify, there is actually a comment section right on the app, so you could leave a comment right on the app. And if you have any suggestions, happy to hear them, and we'll talk about them on a future podcast. All right, and that will wrap up this episode.
Bye.
So Meghan also had a couple of ideas on how we could Disney-fy the Big E. One of her major ideas was add a fireworks show, and I think that would be awesome. I don't know. The Big E is a little bit close to residential areas, so I don't know how great they'd think it was, but Meghan thought that would be a great addition. Also, she pushed back on the idea of putting castles where all of the state buildings were, and she said that one of the state buildings should be turned into a place where you meet Mickey Mouse after the fireworks. Now, she was specific about after the fireworks because that's kind of our family tradition. We'll see the fireworks at Magic Kingdom, and then we head over to see Mickey Mouse, the Magician Mickey, and I think we've done that on almost every trip that we've gone, except for maybe her trip when she was a year old because she fell asleep at dinner. She also said that there should be a giant toy store where you can find all of your Disney toys. And I thought, especially because there is the theme of the farm animals and stuff like that with so much of the Big E, that maybe make it like Al's Toy Barn from Toy Story 2. So those were a couple of Meghan's ideas on how to Disney-fy the Big E. Now, if you are looking to Disney-fy your next vacation, you should talk to We Do Travel Right. We Do Travel Right provides that concierge level service with things like the dining team and also special study halls and seminars and videos that teach you how to get the most out of your vacation. That's on top of the personal service that you get one-on-one with an agent whenever you need them. The best part about all of the services that they offer is they don't cost anything extra. That's because companies like Disney that We Do Travel Right works with, which is also Universal, cruise lines, and all-inclusive resorts, those companies pay We Do Travel Right for you. The price of an agent is built right in to their prices. So you're paying for it whether you use it or not. So you might as well use it. So if you are interested in having a vacation without having the stress of planning a vacation, check out We Do Travel Right. You can reach them at wedotravelright.com/Mazza. That's wedotravelright.com/MAZA. So go give them a visit and get your magical vacation started today.
Walking through the crowd at the exposition, cotton candy and circus rides, burlap bags sliding out of the sky, bouncing down from the big yellow slide, suspended like a flying yellow brick road, calling you and me to an up it and go. I reach you to the top, I got this dream in my eyes, you and me in the big yellow slide. Do you wanna ride the big yellow slide? Do you wanna ride with me? Do you wanna ride the big yellow slide? Do you wanna ride with me? I do it with you, baby.
Now I can't do any more damage around this popsicle stand.
So long, partner.
See you real soon.
Well, thank you everybody for being a part of this podcast. If you have any ideas on how we could Disney-fy the Big E, you can shoot them to me at mazasmusings@gmail.com. You can always go to our social media and interact with us there. There's the Maz's Musings Podcast Facebook page. There's Maz's Musings Pod on Instagram and Threads. And you can always go to our website, and there's a contact form right on there. There's also links to our link tree where you can find other ways to interact with us, and all the different places that you can find the podcast. Once again, thank you to everybody who has left a rating or review. Those ratings and reviews really help in the algorithm that boosts certain podcasts up in the rankings or in the visibility calculations that they make and how they make podcasts visible or accessible to people. So thank you to everybody who has done that. If you have not done that, it takes 2 seconds. Sometimes it's just a clicking 5 stars. Sometimes it'll be like just typing a little thing, hey, this podcast is great. But truthfully, the best way to spread the word about this podcast is through word of mouth and through social media. Share it with your friends. Talk with them about it. Put it out there on your social media. Even liking or commenting on things makes us more visible. It's all great. However you want to do it is much appreciated. We would also very much appreciate it if you bought us a blue milk. This will help us monetarily with some of the things that go into running this podcast. We're appreciative of whatever support we get, and we really just hope that everybody's having a good time listening, and we'll continue to come back to have good times every week. With that said, we're going to close out this week's podcast. And as always, I hope you have a great weekend and a great week. Anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
No, I'm going to stay quiet on this one. I don't know why I said that. That sounded really like...
We can cut that part out.
Yeah, thanks. The end.